Portions of the following program may have been pre-recorded.
The following program's views, claims, or ideas may not reflect those of WSRR Radio or StylesRebelRadio.com.
What the hell and shit is up? It's Behind Enemy Lines right here on WSRR Radio, Styles Rebel Radio, nationally local, meaning we play your local bands coast to coast on a national stage. This is your Cleveland sports talk show from Pittsburgh. I'm Lucas D'Orazio. I'm always joined by Dom Farrow. This is Behind Enemy Lines, and it is April 21st. One day after 420. Hope everyone had a spectacular smoky holiday. Also a day after Easter, and also the last episode of Behind Enemy Lines before the 2025 NFL Draft. One of the biggest days in the sport, an S-tier day in sports, as we have covered in the past here on this show. And I think mostly today, Dom, we're just going to be going over some mock drafts. So strap in, listen to what the Browns are going to be doing this year. Listen to what Dom thinks the Steelers are going to be doing. New quarterbacks. How much does the Flacco signing change the Browns' mindset moving forward? Dom, how hype are you for every single team to win the draft on Thursday night? Because on draft night, every single team wins the Super Bowl.
I am pumped. I can't believe it's already here. Like you said, it's an S tier. Another S tier thing, though, was the Masters, and we'll talk about a little of that too, but this has just been like, it's the perfect season right now. You go from March Madness to the Masters to the draft. It is just S tier season right now. And Lucas, you went a little, I think you've turned heel on us with that intro. You went wild.
Oh, yeah. You like that?
I loved it. You went off the rails.
Speaking of turning heel, another S tier moment in sports and sports entertainment this weekend is WrestleMania. Of course, we're recording on April 17th, Thursday night, so we don't know exactly what happened in the American Nightmare versus John Cena, Cody Rhodes versus the Farewell Tour. After this, you won't see me. So we can't talk about that. Maybe next week we'll talk about it 1 week removed from the event. But, you know, the biggest question on Dom's mind is Jey Uso going to be able to knock off Gunther this weekend?
Yeah.
Dom, what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't really like either of them. Before we started recording, I told Lucas, I just think the promotion for this WrestleMania has been weak. There's nothing that's really been getting my attention that makes me want to watch. I don't really watch in general, but lately the business has been, pretty fascinating. We talked about that Vince McMahon documentary. That's really what kicked it off for me. And I've been trying to get into it, but I just can't. We watched some type of event with our friend, and it wasn't very good. This guy Gunther, he's one of my least favorite. And then we saw Jey Uso.
Dom doesn't know anything about him, but he just hates Gunther.
It's just how is that the heavyweight champion? How is that the face, one of the faces of the WWE? He's just such a boring character, and maybe that's the whole thing. I'm out on it though. But then Jey Uso, I didn't really understand. I don't follow him really, but then he came out at this Pat McAfee event that we were at the other week, and he's the whole thing is eat. I'm wasn't that thing in 2014? That's over a decade. It's just, I don't know. I'm just out on both those guys, but yeah, anything to get Gunther out. John Cena, that's really the only appeal in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say I don't understand why Jey Uso is so over. I don't understand the yeet thing. I don't think when I watch him wrestle, I'm not super impressed. That's one thing about me is I have in the past watched wrestling, and I do now more watch it. But I like the technical side of it, which is one thing why I actually think Gunther's not that bad. Gunther, I don't know how the hell you're supposed to say his name. The ring general. I feel like he is a pretty good technical wrestler, actually. His wrestling's good, and I think that's kind of why wrestling purists like him. I don't really know how his promos are, how his mic skills are, in all honesty, but I think they're all right. But Jey Uso, he does the super kick every freaking 5 moves. I think it's really stupid. I'm not into it. I don't really understand why he's so over. I don't think the theme song's super hype like everyone else says it is. But maybe I'm getting old. I don't know what it is. But either way, I do agree a little bit that I think the marketing for this year is a little bit lacking. I feel like the John Cena versus Cody Rhodes match is really carrying the entire thing. And at the same time, I haven't seen anything that's been like super ramping it up since Elimination Chamber, since John Cena turned heel. He hasn't wrestled since then. He's just come out and given a couple promos. A couple of them were pretty good. I watched one or two of them, and they were all right. But I feel like because he hasn't wrestled any matches, like it's tough for it to like heat up.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it's kind of like, all right, we've been waiting for a month to see it. Now let's finally get to it. But also, WrestleMania is a 2-night event. I don't know anything that's going on the first night, except for I'm assuming that's when Jey Uso wrestles. But like, I don't know. I'm not like you said, I'm not really tuned into that matchup.
Yeah.
I'll see on Twitter who wins, and I'll be interested to see who wins. But I mean, I think everyone pretty much knows it's going to be Jey Uso. Maybe I'll be wrong, and people listen to this on Monday on their 10 o'clock drive-in will say that I'm an idiot for that. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people think that. It's kind of an obvious ending, but whatever. I do agree. I think the marketing and the lore going into this year, besides one match, is a little bit weak, Dom.
Yeah, and I completely forgot that it was a 2-day event. That really makes me like, why would I tune in? I'm definitely not watching now. I'll see what I need to see on Twitter. But the Masters, that was S tier. That was must-watch television. Lucas, I know you missed it, so I'm going to catch you up a little bit, especially on the final round.
Give me your full recap and give the people the recap, because I don't know how many golf fans we have here, but I know that it was an electric finish.
Yeah, so for the non-golf fans, the Masters is one of 4 majors in the golf season. It's the first one to kick it off. It's the biggest, it's the best one. You win the green jacket. It's what everybody wants to win. And if you win
it's the most storied of the golf tournaments.
That's right. It's very, very historic. All the greatest players have won. Last year, Scotty Scheffler, Tigers won a handful. Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, all these guys have won 4 or 5 plus. But the big thing is if you win all 4 in your career, it's called a Grand Slam. Similar to tennis, if you're a fan, if you win like the Wimbledon, US Open, blah, blah, blah. But Rory McIlroy has won the PGA Championship. He's won the British Open. He has won the US Open, but he never won the Masters. It's been over 10 years since he had won a major. And this is what he needed, but he's been prone to choke. Last year in the US Open, he missed about a 4-foot putt going up against Bryson DeChambeau of Live Golf. So there were some major storylines there. He ended up losing to Bryson. But fast forward to the Masters final round, Rory McIlroy is up by 2 strokes on Bryson DeChambeau, and they're both in the final pairing. First hole, Rory McIlroy double bogeys, Bryson DeChambeau pars. It's all tied up. Anyways, it goes back and forth, back 9. Rory's got the lead still, but he ends up, Justin Rose, who had led the first 2 rounds of the tournament, makes a huge putt on 18. He's multiple groups ahead of Rory. Makes a huge putt to get to 11 under. Puts the pressure on Rory McIlroy. He knows exactly where he's at.
Which I think that's one thing about golf that makes for great TV is that like there's groups in front and groups behind. So like the guy 2 groups in front has to wait, or maybe a couple more groups in front, has to like wait an hour to see whether or not he won or not. I think that alone is like great TV. The Masters is really great TV. Good golf is good TV. Sorry, not to cut you off, Dom, but again, for people who aren't super into watching golf, like this was an event that even if you aren't super into golf, like there's lore and there was intrigue.
Yeah, it goes deep. There's a lot of stuff, especially with so much big names up at the top of the leaderboard. It makes golf so much more fun. And at the Masters at Augusta National, there's no better setting for this. Rory McIlroy makes some huge shots on the back nine. On 14, he has this huge hook from over 200 yards out. It was one of the greatest shots I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, please look it up. But anyways, he's at 10 under. He gets to 11 under on 17. Makes a huge birdie. 18, hits a good drive. Second shot, not so good. He puts in the bunker. He needs to go up and down to take this, or to win this. So he's up 1 at this point.
Gotcha. Up and down means he has to hit it out of the bunker, put it on the green, and then put it in.
Exactly. And so he hits
The bunker is the sand.
Precisely, for all our non-golf fans out there. Rory McIlroy puts one to about 5 feet away. And it's a flashback to last year in the U.S. Open when he misses pretty much the exact same putt. He misses this one again.
Ooh.
Bogeys the hole. We go to a playoff. And just like it's been all this tournament, Rory McIlroy, the highs and the lows, he gets one back. He hits one a beautiful shot. Birdies the playoff hole. Justin Rose pars. Rory McIlroy completes the Grand Slam. And the look on him,
falls to his knees.
Just the relief. He didn't even seem like happy that he won. It seemed like it was just relief because this is all he had been hearing about for the last 10 years of his career. It was pretty amazing. If you're not golf fans, you should be watching the next major because Rory's got a chance at history. I think he's going to have a really like second leg in his career. Like guys, you talk about Kobe. He basically had like 2 careers if you split it down the middle. You talk about LeBron, you could do that too. I think Rory's going to be talked about in that type of way. I think you're going to see a rebirth. Not like he hasn't been really successful, but winning these majors, he'll never catch up to Tiger or Jack Nicklaus, but I think he might get close.
Yeah, and Rory also is a guy who like came on the scene at like 18, right? Like he was young when he started.
He was
and he was in the nation's eye at a very young age.
Oh yeah, like a child, like 6-year-old child. He was basically like Tiger Woods. He was on like television over in Northern Ireland. He was
kind of supposed to be the next coming of Tiger. Correct?
Yeah.
While Tiger was still around.
And people were like, he didn't live up to the hype. I mean, at this point, the numbers, people say it's like comparable to Phil Mickelson. I think he's better than Phil Mickelson. Overall, his career is better than Phil Mickelson. It's not over. So, in my opinion, he's one of the greatest of all time and certainly one of the greatest of this generation.
Dom, how many golf Grand Slam winners are there?
I believe there are 5. Tiger Woods is one of them. I believe there's only one who's done a Grand Slam in a year in one season. I think that was Ben Hogan, if I'm not mistaken.
Holy God.
Ben
Hogan and his magic elbow.
Tiger Woods did something called, that's right, the magic elbow. Tiger Woods did something called the Tiger Slam, where he didn't do 4 in one season, but he did 4 in a row. I think he did like the British Open, PGA Championship, and then the next year won the Masters and US Open or something like that. But as far as like career Grand Slams, I still think there are only like 5 guys.
There are now 6.
Now 6.
Before Rory, there were 5. There are now 6. Gene Sarazen completed the first in 1935.
Wow. Legend.
At 32 years of age. Ben
Wow.
Hogan and his magic elbow didn't do it until he was 40 in 1953. Gary Player did it at 29 in 1964. Jack Nicklaus in 66 when he was 26. Tiger in 2000, youngest player to ever do it at 24 years of age. And Rory this past year at 35. And yeah, I do think that even though he's 35, like in golf years, he's got another 15, 20 years left on the tour where he can be elite. And I would love to see a Rory rebirth.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say about his game is that it's like future proof. He's super powerful and he doesn't get hurt. He can keep up with these young guys because he's still way ahead of them. Even if he loses some of his distance in the future, he's still going to be competing with these guys, because right now he is literally the number one furthest driver hitter in the world. And he's only like 5'8", 5'9". The dude is remarkable. I think he's going to really have a special season. I'm excited to watch the U.S. Open at Oakmont Country Club in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in June, with
That's
Rory
right,
being
right
there.
Here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, me and Dom might post up, get some hot dogs, and watch Rory hit some absolute piss missiles down the fairway. You're listening to Behind Enemy Lines, 216-859-8699. Who's your favorite golfer? Let us know and stick with us through the break.
Hi, this is Melissa.
And hey, it's Matt.
Coming at you from Synergy Music Studio.
We are a recording and production studio located on the south side near Chicago.
Check us out online at synergymusicstudio.com. We offer recording, mixing, and mastering.
And follow us on Instagram at Synergy Music Studio. Rock hard.
Imagine spending hundreds of dollars of your own money to advertise a massive corporation. Now imagine that same corporation using your money to pay a public figure to sell a product back to you. Unfortunately, you don't have to imagine. Corporate product placement is the monopoly of the clothing industry as we know it. That's where GenericClothes.com comes in. Stick it to these big brand clothing cunts by wearing something straight and to the point. GenericClothes.com's got you covered and lets you have a laugh at their expense. Nobody cares about the details. Get to the point. With shirts like floral pattern, trademark logo, music band, and more. Once again, that's GenericClothes.com.
Behind Enemy Lines right here on WSRR Radio, brought to you by Hellbender Vinyl. If LimeWire taught us anything, Dom, your digital music is free and open to piracy and even manipulation when it comes to digital distribution. So why settle for a bunch of ones and zeros floating around the internet? Why the piss would you settle for that? Make your release something special with Hellbender Vinyl. Hellbender is one of America's most trusted custom vinyl record pressing plants and works with local artists to get their next release pressed exactly to their liking. So check out Pittsburgh's first and only custom vinyl pressing plant today by visiting hellbendervinyl.com to get started. And don't forget, all customers at Hellbender Vinyl get 5 free test presses at no additional charge. Hellbent on quality, hellbent on service, hellbendervinyl.com. Hellbender Vinyl is in Pittsburgh. We are in Pittsburgh, and right now we're going to be talking about football, which happens in Pittsburgh. That is my segue into talking about the 2025 NFL draft and some of these mock drafts that we're looking at right now, Dom. So we have a smorgasbord, if you will, of different mock drafts. We have CBS, NFL.com, Mel Kiper combined with Yates. Who's Yates? TJ Yates? Is that his name?
Sounds right.
Wasn't that TJ? Wait, there was a Yates who was a running back. Maybe I'm making that up. So we're going to be talking about some of these mock drafts and what we think is going to happen. The draft is on Thursday, April 24th is day 1, night 1, round 1 of the draft. Friday is rounds 2 and 3. Saturday, rounds 4 through 7. And Dom, let's break down the first round right off the bat. Tennessee Titans, Cam Ward. It's pretty much on every mock draft. It's not in question, right?
Yeah, that's got to be the lock of the draft. Tennessee needs a quarterback. They've obviously given up on Will Levis. They gave up on Mason Rudolph, gave him right back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It makes sense for the Titans. I think he might bring a little bit of life back into that offense. So yeah, I think that one's pretty much set in stone.
Yeah, and I think that not only is he an athletic guy, he's not going to jump off the page with his athleticism, though. Like, I think he's just a really good pocket passer, actually. And that's kind of what gets lost because he has nonchalant aura when he's on the field. And that's kind of what people on TikTok want to focus on. And people on Twitter is like, oh man, look how nonchalant he looks in the pocket. But like, really, if you watch the tape, he's a great downfield thrower. He's good in the pocket. He goes through his reads well. He's done it at 3 different levels now at UIW, University of Incarnate Word, at Washington State, and then last year at Miami. I know that, Washington State and Miami are on the same level. They're both D1, but, going from the Big 12 to the ACC, it is different football. It's just a little bit different of a brand of football. Maybe a step up, maybe not, but still, he's done it at 3 different programs. He's looked good and succeeded and put up good stats at all 3 programs. And I think he can do it in the NFL too. Do you have any reservations about Cam Ward or no?
I think you pretty much just said it. The accolades are there. The number 1 passing touchdown thrower of all time in college football. I mean, that means something. He's still 22 years old. There's so much potential. I think that's still untapped. And he's proven that he can still produce against a lot of good talent. And he showed it at Miami this past year. So I don't really have any doubts that he'll have success in the NFL. I don't know if he'll be a Super Bowl
I was going to say,
winner.
now I don't know if I even want to say that he's like a surefire pick at number 1, but he is the most deserving of this number 1 pick, right? Like I really don't think he's like a surefire right off the bat. Like he's going to win the Titans games and they will win a Super Bowl because of him. Like, I don't think that that's the case necessarily, but at the same time, like you look at this draft and like, let's just start it off on that conversation. It's not a great draft.
Yeah, it is kind of weak, but I do think that like what you're trying to say is that he's not the best player in the draft. There are other guys that are better than him in this draft. He's probably not like the number 1 guy on the big board, but because that's what the team needs and because that's how much value that the league has in quarterbacks, that's just where he's going. And I think that it just makes sense, and that is why I think it is a lock for the number 1 pick.
I don't think that he's like a generational guy by any means. Like I really don't think he's spectacular, but I think the most generational guy in this draft is probably Travis Hunter. And yet he's trying to do something that no one's really done, where he wants to start on both sides of the ball. Like he is maybe a little bit undersized. Like he's the number 1 guy and there's still kind of question marks and like unsure things about him. Abdul Carter, same thing. Like he's the number 1 guy, but he's not a quarterback. Like, or, again, he's in the conversation for the number 1 player in this draft, but he's not a quarterback. And the Titans are pretty much fully in rebuild mode. They're going to take a quarterback. Like you said, they're out on Will Levis. They shipped off Mason Rudolph back to Pittsburgh, back to the Steelers, back with us here, in the hills of Pittsburgh and on the rivers of the Monongahela, Ohio, and Allegheny. But yeah, I think he's going number 1. Now, number 2 is where it gets interesting because 1, it's the Browns, so it gets interesting for this show. But 2, it's, people were going back and forth. For a while, it was definitely going to be a quarterback. People were thinking it was going to be Shador. Then even before they signed Flacco, it sounded like they're probably just going to take Abdul Carter. It's going to be really, really safe pick. He's going to be really good. They're going to really bolster the defense, put him and Myles Garrett on the other side of each other. I feel like in the last week and a half since Joe Flacco's been signed, it seems like everyone in Cleveland is saying we're taking Travis Hunter and it's a sure thing. What do you, like, from an outsider's perspective, what do you think? Do you think it changes at all, the fact that they picked up Flacco? Or do you think that they were going to take Travis Hunter anyway? Which one do you think is best? Which one do you think is more likely? I want to hear from you, Dom.
I mean, I think they were always planning on not drafting a quarterback in this draft. They never seemed like they wanted or that they were even interested.
At least not at 2. At least not at 2, they're not going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, first round. They were never going to be doing that. They showed that with a lot of their moves in the offseason. They never expressed much interest in any of these guys. Yeah, they saw what they could do, but they just don't see the value in that. And I think most of the league agrees with them on that. I think you could see a big slide on quarterbacks, but anything can happen here. But I think the thing for the Browns here is that you can either go with the best player in this draft, or you can take the player who make the fans happy. And that's the decision that they got to make. And I think that the spot that they're in with the fans, really, it might be an all-time high of resentment for the team, it seems like. Bad moves after bad moves. You finally make one big jump to try to see if you can do something with a quarterback, a big name, and it fails. Fans are sick and tired of this, so you got to do something that makes them happy. I think Travis Hunter, I believe most of these mock drafts, I think Travis Hunter, it makes sense for the Browns. They'd like to do something to rejuvenate that organization. I don't think Abdul Carter does that in the same way.
Yeah, just organizationally, I do agree. I think that Travis Hunter is a better decision for Andrew Berry's job security, for the PR of the team, for keeping fans around. I think that that's better. But to say that is also not to say that he's not going to make a huge impact on this team. I mean, either way, he's been saying that he really wants to start both ways and play a lot both ways.
Yeah.
Even if he only plays one way, like, he's going to be a really, really good receiver. He would be a great compliment to Jerry Jeudy in the pass game. Jerry Jeudy, Travis Hunter, David Njoku is a really good pass-catching core for an offense. Even if 40-year-old Joe Flacco's slinging it around because he does still have an elite arm, that's a stance that we will stick to on behind enemy lines, no matter what happens in the 2025 season. Joe Flacco was, and always will be elite.
It might be the best weapons he's had in his career if they get Travis Hunter and he's playing on offense.
Well, I don't know. The year they won the Super Bowl, he did have Jacoby Jones and Anquan Bolden. Anquan
was
nearing
washed.
the end, but he was still a dog.
He was very good. There's no disrespect to Anquan Bolden on this podcast.
Torrey Smith out of the slot. Don't talk about Torrey Smith out of the slot like he was some bum. Dennis Pitta at tight end.
Pitta was None of all these guys were like slightly above average though. I mean, Travis Hunter could be elite.
The running back, he was the best pass catching back in the league.
Yeah, and who's going to be running back for the Browns this year? Jerome Ford.
We'll get to that when we cross that bridge. But also Travis Hunter on defense, though. Travis Hunter and Denzel Ward on opposite sides of each other at corner. That's a lockdown duo. They have good safeties. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. But they could have some good safeties. I feel like they signed someone that I'm forgetting about now, and I'll probably think of it in the break in 10, 15, 20 minutes. But I think that it would be a great pick. And another thing that I saw on Twitter from someone was just with Joe Flacco at quarterback and Travis Hunter, like, that alone just makes the Browns an easier team to root for, and like makes not only people in Cleveland, but people around the league kind of want to see the Browns win. I feel like if they had a 40-year-old quarterback and a guy who's doing something that no one's ever seen, like Andrew Berry said, he can be like the Shohei Ohtani of the NFL. He can be the NFL's unicorn. I think a lot of people would really get on board, and that can start some momentum, and I think the Browns could get some juice from that.
Yeah, and they'll sell jerseys too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Number 3, in this Mel Kiper and Yates mock draft, they have the Giants taking Abdul Carter.
Love it.
Do you think that's probably right? I think that
he's a top 3 lock.
Yes. And again, early people were saying that Shedeur Sanders was very likely going to the Giants. But again, if Abdul Carter's there and you're at 3, it's hard not to take him. It seems like more and more the closer we're getting to draft day, Shedeur Sanders is sliding down boards, which doesn't surprise me at all. I really think it was, QB prejudice, but also name prejudice, and the fact that he was ever considered, like a top 2 pick. I also, by the way, think it's really insanely ridiculous that Colorado is retiring Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's jersey numbers. Do you want to talk about that at all, Dom? Because that's just kind of a mockery of retiring numbers, if you ask me.
I do think it's very quick. I think that part is the weirdest. And Shedeur obviously shouldn't have his number retired. Travis Hunter, I think, should.
Yeah,
Heisman winner.
Heisman winner.
Yeah.
Heisman winner. I mean,
Totally
they
fine.
went 13-12 in their time in Colorado.
Yeah.
Nothing
crazy.
I don't even know if they won a bowl game. They weren't impressive. They were only there for 2 years.
No, they had
weren't-
moments.
It's not like they started there as freshmen. They transferred in. They were 13-12, as I said. They were barely above 500. Again, Travis Hunter, he won the Heisman doing something that we haven't seen done in years. But Shedeur Sanders has absolutely no business being someone who has his number retired.
Yeah, it's all because of last name, but I kind of feel bad for Shiloh Sanders.
Yeah.
He didn't get his number retired.
How about that?
Poor guy.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, actually. That is pretty depressing.
But back to Abdul Carter, I haven't felt this good about a first-round prospect since Micah Parsons.
Really? Were you that sold on Micah Parsons? I was going to say Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett, that's even going back further. I was very sold on Micah Parsons. He was just always, it was just like no doubt about it. Abdul Carter is the same way. I think he's a bit of a more rough than Micah Parsons was coming out of college, but I think there's a natural ability in a special way that he's going to be able to dominate in this league. And I think for the Giants, it could be exactly what they needed on this defense. They don't really have anyone who's really been a force on that defense in a long time. I think he could lock it down. I like it for the Giants.
Yeah, I do like it, but I also kind of feel bad for Giants fans because I feel like they take Abdul Carter like that's not really a win now pick. And it's because they're not set up to win now at all. They have Russ and Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito as their quarterbacks. And honestly, I'd be hard pressed to name a lot of other players on that team right now.
Yeah, it's in a rough spot right now. It's remind me of J.J. Watt at the beginning of his career with Houston. I mean, that was a rough squad. That was really rough, I think. But he was always a standout player. He was renowned around the league. I think Abdul Carter has potential to do the same thing with the Giants, and I think next year they're going to be in a similar spot in a much stronger quarterback class, and they should go out and get that guy. Who knows what happens here? Next pick, though, Will Campbell. Will Campbell to the Patriots, number 4 offensive lineman for LSU. What are you thinking about this pick, the 2-time All-SEC offensive tackle?
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I mean, I think that one, Mike Vrabel is, he's going to put his stamp on this team, and I think he's going to be a hard-nosed guy who wants to run the football, but also it seems like you have your franchise guy in Drake May. Let's go get him an all-conference in one of the best conferences in college football, if not the best conference in college football. Let's go get, the best guy at offensive line, who, at least in their opinion, is the best guy at offensive line. Maybe the next guy who goes on some people's draft board is, but whatever. Let's get a left tackle to protect our franchise guy who can also help us a little bit in the run game. So, boring pick, but I think it's the right pick for the Patriots. Then 5th, again, like I said, another offensive tackle, Mason Graham.
This
from
defensive
Michigan.
tackle.
Or is he a defensive tackle? I can't see this. This print is too small.
This
I
is
just
a
looked at the position. Defensive tackle Mason Graham. Again, kind of a boring pick, but I don't hate it for the Jaguars. But again, I think this pick for the Jaguars would be similar to Abdul Carter. It's not a win now pick, and it kind of shouldn't be because they probably can't win now. Again, Jaguars, team that kind of tough to name a ton of players on.
Yeah, Jaguars, I think, are stuck in purgatory right now. I do think they have a little bit of talent, but they kind of blew up this past offseason. Really, the only thing they've left behind is Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby. Christian Kirk is gone. Evan Ingram is gone. There's a lot of players who have parted ways. Mason Graham is, arguably the best defensive tackle in a really rich defensive tackle NFL class. There are a lot of guys that I like in this draft that I want the Steelers to take. Mason Graham was one of them that I had liked for a while. But if he's going this early, that's surprising to me. But I don't really know what the Jaguars need right now. I'd like to see him get a wide receiver. I think Trevor Lawrence needs something like that. Brian Thomas is good, but you get someone else? I don't know. What do you think?
Now, on the CBS Sports mock draft, they have the Jets trading up with the Patriots in the 4th pick to take Mason Graham over the Jaguars, and then the Jaguars taking Will Campbell with that next pick. So it seems like they're going to be going somewhere around there, Mason Graham and Will Campbell in those 4 and 5 spots. It sounds to me like you at D tackle are looking for the replacement to Cam Hayward. No,
I wouldn't say replacement because Cam Hayward every year you think,
sorry, not the replacement, the heir.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to be here forever, but he continually proves that he's got it. But yeah, I'd like to see defensive tackle in the first round. I think right now that would be my target.
Now, the next pick is surprising to me a little bit because both CBS and the Mel Kiper and Yates mock draft have Ashton Jeanty going number 6 to the Raiders. Does Ashton Jeanty go this early in the draft? Is he a top 6 pick?
I guess so. For the longest time, I thought he would slip maybe past like 14. But going to 6, that's really early for a running back. But if there's a guy to do it for, it's Ashton Jeanty. I didn't agree with it for Bijan Robinson. I didn't agree with it for a lot of these guys that have been taken early in the first round in recent years. But Ashton Jeanty, I think, is a special talent. I don't know if you saw his note that he wrote. It was basically like, this is tackle football, so draft the guy who doesn't get tackled. And then he just signed his name.
I didn't like that, but I like that a lot.
Pretty hard, pretty tough. I love Ashton Jeanty. I love his mentality. I think he's going to thrive.
I think is what I meant to say there, but go on.
I think he's going to really thrive in the NFL. Raiders taking him. This is a team who has really struggled on the ground in recent years. I can't think of a good running back that they've had in a long, long time. I mean, Zamir White was horrible last year. The running back
that was getting a lot of significant carries for the Raiders was Amir Abdullah, who I hadn't heard of since he was drafted by the Lions but out of Nebraska, and that was like years ago. I don't even know how long ago that was. But they definitely could use some help on the ground. The one thing I did see about Ashton Jeanty, some of his comments were that he said people were watching Saquon Barkley run through people in the playoffs, and they kind of were like, oh man, this is crazy. And he was saying, this could be me. I can do that for a team. And I think that coming off of a year where, obviously the Eagles have a great team overall. They have a great front seven, really good quarterback, great receivers, a good tight end. Their offense is really set up for success. But seeing a running back with elite talent, how that can step you up into another tier of being a successful offense. I think that Saquon Barkley and the Eagles helped Ashton Jeanty's stock a little bit in that way that, a team can see that, I feel like people are moving more towards running back by committee. Running backs are replaceable. You don't need an elite back. You need a good offensive line and a good play caller and a good offensive scheme. But really, the guy carrying the ball makes the difference. It's not all X's and O's. Sometimes it's the Jimmies and the Joes, Dom. That's right. And I do think that Saquon Barkley's performance helped out Ashton Jeanty's draft stock. I don't know if he goes this high at 6. NFL.com has the Raiders taking Shador, which, again, I also don't know about that. But at the same time, who else do the Raiders have at quarterback?
Geno and Pete Carroll.
Well, that's true.
That's all you need.
That is true. I didn't think about that. And I don't think they take Shador Sanders to sit behind Geno. and I don't think they got Geno to sit behind Shedeur Sanders. So I wouldn't be. I don't think that's a great mock draft for NFL.com. They have the Jets taking Genty at 7 next. I don't think the Jets are taking Genty because they have a very good running back.
Two very good. Braylon Allen's also very good.
Yeah, I was going to say, and they have Braylon Allen. I don't know what NFL.com was cooking on their mock draft, but I'm not loving it. But yeah, I don't know. What other moves do you think the Raiders can make? I feel like they're kind of a team that's bad enough and has so little of a direction from an outside looking in perspective that it's kind of like, what would you even take? And will a running back really help you that much?
Yeah, no.
Especially with the fact that running backs' careers are so shortened now. Like, if you're a bad team, why take a running back? Because if you're going to build, by the time you're good enough, I mean, I feel like a lot of teams, it takes like 3 to 5 years to build from being a top 5 pick to being a Super Bowl contender. By the time you do that, the running back's career is half over.
Yeah, but you got to think about Pete Carroll. He wants to win right now. He doesn't have much more time coaching in the NFL. He's back and he wants to win. He might coach until the day he dies. Who knows? But I think he's trying to win right now. I think, honestly, Ashton Genty gives them the best chance to win right now. You have Geno Smith. What are you going to do? Start Shedeur Sanders over him? That's not winning right now. You're just going to be stuck in this limbo again. You commit to Geno. You draft the best running back in probably the last...
Probably since Saquon.
Yeah, honestly, that's what I was thinking. He's once in a lifetime player, I think, and I think the Raiders will take him here. I think that makes a lot of sense. 7th overall pick, Yates and Kuiper's hybrid draft has them taking offensive tackle Armand Membu out of Mizzou, another big SEC lineman. It just makes sense. You always know you've got a shot when you draft one of these guys that they're going to be one of the best in the league.
Yeah, it's another kind of boring pick, but also the Jets, another team that don't really have a ton of direction. Maybe they want to run the ball a lot this year, considering that they brought in former Steeler Justin Fields, and we know what he can do on the ground. We just mentioned they have 2 very good running backs. Add some beef to that front line. 216-859-8699. This is Behind Enemy Lines. We're going to be talking about some of these later round picks in a couple of minutes after this break. Stick with us to hear the rest of our mock draft analysis right here on WSRR Radio.
If LimeWire taught us anything, your digital music is free and open to piracy, and even manipulation when it comes to digital distribution. So why settle for a bunch of ones and zeros floating around on the internet? Make your release something special with Hellbender Vinyl. Hellbender is one of America's most trusted custom vinyl record pressing plants and works with local artists to get their next release pressed exactly to their liking. So check out Pittsburgh's first and only custom vinyl pressing plant today by visiting hellbendervinyl.com to get started. And don't forget, all customers at Hellbender Vinyl get 5 free test presses at no additional charge. Hellbent on quality, hellbent on service, hellbendervinyl.com.
Your final segment of Behind Enemy Lines and your 10 o'clock block right here on WSRR Radio, brought to you by GenericClothes.com. Nobody gives a piss about the details. Get straight to the pissing point at GenericClothes.com. And Dom, let's get straight to the point of the end of this Mel Kiper, TJ Yates mock draft. These so-called experts have the Cleveland Browns drafting back into the first round after taking Travis Hunter at 2 into the 29th pick where they would trade with Washington and taking Jackson Dart, their quarterback of the future. Dom, I know we've talked about a lot of potential quarterback situations, especially for Cleveland. Do you see this being a possibility? I know earlier you said that you don't see them taking a quarterback in this draft. You think they've made it very clear that they're not interested in any of these guys. Henceforth, them getting Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and the likes of those two guys. I guess that's it. There's no one else. Do you think that this is a possibility of them drafting back into the first round, taking Jackson Dart?
No, I don't see this happening at all. I stand by my statement that they're not drafting a quarterback in the first round. There's been a lot of hype behind a lot of these quarterbacks in recent weeks. All of these guys all of a sudden are first round type of quarterbacks. I've been even hearing about Jalen Milroe. Apparently now he's going to be drafted in the late first round. I don't agree with a lot of this stuff, and I think it's a lot of hype that gets overblown around this time. I don't think the Browns will make this move. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a big bet. They've swung and missed a few times. I don't think they're going to swing and miss here. What I do think makes sense is that the Commanders would trade this pick. I think they're in a pretty solid spot. If they don't have a guy that they want that late, and there's a lot of value, a team that needs a quarterback that bad, I could see someone trading and maybe taking Jackson Dart there, but I don't think it's going to be the Browns.
Now, we've talked about this phenomenon in draft history that from the time between February and April, guys jump from being third rounders to first rounders. I think we've seen it with Jackson Dart. I think we've seen it with Jalen Milroe. I'm thinking now, do you think that it's a ratings ploy, Dom? Do you think they're playing us? Because I think that in a way, ESPN is employing Mel Kiper. Mel Kiper is supposed to be this draft expert, but really, how many times do they go back and check how right his mock drafts were? Do you think that it gets more eyes on the draft and it gets more eyes on his mock draft to say recognizable names like Jackson Dart, like Jalen Milroe, guys who play positions like quarterback or, maybe a big wide receiver or running back? Because, I'm looking at some of these other names on here. They have, I'm trying to pick out there we go. Shamar Stewart is being taken by the Packers at number 23. He's an edge rusher out of Texas A&M. To a casual fan, that's probably not someone who they even know who that is. Texas A&M didn't have a super successful year last year. It's not like anyone's like, oh man, I shouldn't say anyone, but there's not a ton of people who are like, oh man, I got to tune in to see where Shamar Stewart goes. I think more people are tuning in to see where Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart go and these late round quarterbacks rather than some of the guys who maybe are more deserving of first round. Do you think that there's a weighing of being right and being an expert versus getting eyes and getting ratings and talking about what people want to hear?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why, like I said, you've been hearing the Jalen Milroe as a first round quarterback. It's just not the case. I think Mel Kiper pretty much keeps it straight to the point. I think this is going to be pretty close to what you see on draft night. He won't get 100% right, but he usually gets most of the guys that are in the first round. Sometimes people will slip. That just always happens in the draft for a lot of different reasons, but
you don't think he throws a couple of guys in there just to get the needle moving?
Well, he has like multiple versions throughout the season. I think probably every once in a while he'll throw in a guy there and he'll use a headline. But I think for the most part, he wants to be accurate more than get clicks. That's the way I view him personally.
But does he get paid to be accurate is my thing. I don't think he gets paid to be right. I think he gets paid to bring people to the site and bring people to the show that is the draft. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's his main role, like an analyst at the draft. Like that's his Super Bowl. But year round, I think he's pretty good overall at like knowing where teams are sitting at where they, but really, what do any of these guys know at this point?
Exactly. The only place you can get real, honest analytics and analysis is right here on WSRR Radio from Behind Enemy Lines. Now, Dom, we got 3 minutes left in our show. We talked about D tackles a little bit earlier. The Steelers are picking at 21, and they have TJ Yates and Mel Kiper. I don't even know if that's his first name, TJ, or not. But I
don't think it is. We might need to walk that one back. I think it's Field Yates.
It doesn't really matter. His name's Yates. What's it?
He's
what is it?
Yates cat. Field Yates?
Field. Oh, that's right. Field Yates. I should have known
TJ
that.
Yates
At
was
pick
a player.
21, Fieldy Boy has the Steelers, your Steelers, taking Derek Harmon, D tackle out of Oregon at pick 21. I know we just talked about needing the heir to Hayward. Is this the guy that gets you fired up to watch some Steelers football? Because earlier when we had a complete fumble on my end in terms of technical difficulties, you said if Shedeur Sanders is there at 21, the Steelers take him, no doubt.
Yeah, 100%. They had a visit with each other. Said it was a 10 out of 10 visit. That's just a steal at pick 21. The Steelers obviously would take him there. He was in Pittsburgh recently, actually, at some 7-on-7 event. And let me tell you, there were clips of it that I saw. It was one of the craziest things. Youth football, they've got foam pits out there. And when they score a touchdown, they jump in the foam pit. The youth football is crazy nowadays.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's all Mickey Mouse.
It's pretty hilarious.
Bull crap.
Their jerseys are they're not even numbers. It's a question mark or the 100 emoji. It's awesome. But anyways, if Shedeur Sanders drops to 21, that's just a lock there. But if not, defensive tackle is the position that I'm leaning for the Steelers to take. Derek Harmon from Oregon is where this mock draft has the Steelers going. I like it. I think, you got to build the trenches, and I think he's one of the better ones in here. Like I said earlier, I did want Mason Graham for a while here. There are a few other guys later in the draft. Forget what the guy's name is. The guy from Florida who's 400 pounds. Have you seen this guy?
Oh, God, he's a big cat. That guy is absolutely a truck. He's gained...
Desmond Watson. He's 464 pounds.
Is he the one who's gained weight since his freshman year? And they were like, oh, he was up 100 pounds since his freshman year. And ESPN was kind of trying to sell it like it was a good thing.
It's this guy's pushing 500 right now.
This guy is absolutely morbidly obese, but he can hold down the A gap, and we can hold down your 10 a.m. drive to work on Monday morning. Stick with us here on Monday mornings at the 10 a.m. block behind Enemy Lines, WSRR Radio.
Peace.
The preceding program was a sponsored production. The views, claims, and ideas expressed may not represent those of WSRR Radio.